And we are live. Just going to make sure all the levels are good because it won't let me test it before I go live. Recording started. If you're here and can hear me, please feel free to say hi in the chat. I'll be answering any questions there too as we go through stuff. Sorry for all the clicking as I'm sure everything's all ready to go. It's pretty hot here. I'm in the Seattle area. We're in a heat wave, and I'm glad we're doing this a little earlier. It's 77 degrees. There's no AC in my house, so or at least in the whole house. But all right, there we go. That looks good. Let's see. That looks good. Let me test the audio. Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay? Testing. Oh no. Do you guys not hear me? That's not good. What's going on here? Can you hear me? Oh no. Test. I think that works. But what is going on here? I'm not hearing audio. Oh man. Real fun is that I can't change stuff when the live stream has started. Oh no. Let's see here. Hello, I can hear you. Oh, that's wonderful. You can hear me. Okay, cool. It's not showing any marks on the screen. So thank you, Jana, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I so appreciate you confirming that. Let me try from this, see if I can hear it. Okay, we're good. YouTube is funny like this. The microphone on the actual live stream is not showing any input, but it's coming through. All right. We'll start in just a minute here. We're going to be talking about how to finger pick faster. I'm really excited about this lesson. Lots of good stuff to talk about. And so we'll start in just a moment here. There we go. Live chat. Well, I'm glad the audio is working. That would not be fun. All right. Turn it up just a little bit and get started here in 1 second. Let me do this. There we go. Recording there. Got everything going. I think we're good. Hello. In today's live lesson, we're going to be talking about how to finger pick faster. I'm really excited about this lesson because we're going to be talking a bit about finger picking technique, and we're also going to be talking about practice habits, obviously to gain more speed and control. And a lot of these concepts will, transcend just finger picking. You'll be able to use them for really anything you're playing. So hopefully you'll find something that will really make its way into your practice as we talk this through. The first thing I want to talk about with this is that practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So what this means is a lot of times we think as long as we just keep playing, we will get perfect and great with whatever it is we're working on. And that's just not true. We actually have to make sure we're practicing towards what we want to be able to do. And when it's a technique-driven skill, such as finger picking on an ukulele, it's incredibly important that your technique is as close to perfect as you can get. Really what we want to do is strive for perfection within our technique. So if you're trying to play something faster before you're playing it better, you're going to have a really bad time trying to get it up to speed and trying to work it through with whatever it is you're working on. So what I want to start with today is talking about fingerpicking technique and how to strive for what I think is perfect technique. A lot of different opinions, a lot of different schools of thought with this. If you want to check out more, Rock Class 101 has an awesome fingerpicking module that teaches all sorts of different techniques. That's definitely worth checking out. But in the meantime, the technique I'm going to show you here is really for all types of fingerpicking. So I'm going to move my camera down. And I'm going to super zoom my camera in. It's going to look something like this. Ooh, super close. So finger picking is anytime you strike the strings with your fingers a singular way, right? Strumming is going to be more of this, and then melodic picking or thumb picking is just the thumb. Finger picking is anytime you're going to use 2 or more fingers together. So there's lots of different correct ways to finger pick. Some of the most common ones are going to be like 4 finger picking, or 3 finger picking, or 2 finger picking. There's alternate picking. There's, flat picking style with multiple fingers. There's all sorts of different things on the ukulele. And really, whatever technique you're using, they're all going to use the same basic guidelines. And what those are is when your thumb is engaged, You want to have it about a 45-degree angle to the string. And I like to be right about where the sound hole and the fretboard meet in this little area right here. That's where I like my thumb to be. And when I'm finger picking with my thumb, I try to not use this first knuckle here to actually make the pluck happen. I actually want to use more of the back end here, keeping the thumb more straight and having it go more like this. You'll see that as I pluck the string with my thumb, it goes a little bit down and out. Not a lot, but a bit. And as I'm plucking, the thumb has a little bit of give to it as the string is being struck. And it doesn't matter which string I'm striking with my thumb, I'm still going to be using this sort of concept, the thumb sticking more in front. The other fingers are going to be used in finger picking. And what that is going to be is your index, middle, or ring, depending on what kind of finger picking you're playing. Usually your index will be engaged though. And so what I like to do is take that index and I like to move it underneath the thumb. So if I start with my thumb here on the G string, for instance, I'm going to put my index finger on the C. This is just setting up a 4-finger style, but it doesn't matter. You can be on any sets of strings. It's just the concept here with the index finger being perpendicular to the string. It can be very tempting sometimes to have the finger more out like this. And it's not that this isn't a possible way to get a great tone. It's just, it's really hard to do. It's sort of like if you're learning how to throw a football and you're starting sidearm, a lot of times people are going to fix your technique to make it easier. It's not to say you can't be a great thrower of sidearm, but it's just harder to do. And that's kind of what this is like. Moving that index finger back behind the thumb at a perpendicular angle, just like this, gives you a really good tone with less effort. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to use this first knuckle here and bend it back. Just like I don't want the thumb bending this way, I don't want the index bending this way. I don't want to pluck my strings like this. What I want to have happen is I want that first knuckle to be more relaxed. And as I strike the string, what I'm doing is I'm putting tension on the string, and notice how the finger moves. I'm going to come up and out to release on that string. So the index finger kind of comes back into the hand while the thumb goes more in front of the finger. And if I'm using like my middle finger, it's the same concept as the index. And if I'm using my ring, same concept there again. Trying to be perpendicular to the string, trying to have some give to it. I'm going to release up and out as I go. So a good finger picking technique looks something like this. See how these are more perpendicular? With the thumb more at that 45. This is just what I find to be the best way to finger pick because it gives you the best control and best tone. And whether you're doing 4-finger like I just talked about, or maybe you're doing 3-finger, or maybe you're doing something with only 2 fingers. Or maybe you're using like 2 fingers to alternate. It doesn't matter as long as those fingers are kind of assuming those positions, keeping it more perpendicular and getting that for the best tone possible. I'm going to move the camera back up. So that perfect technique is what we want to strive for. You'll never get it. You'll never get it perfect. I'll never get it perfect. No one will ever get it perfect. We're human beings. We're not incapable of that, right? It's just not going to happen. But we strive for that perfection. Every time we're playing, we want to look at what it is we're playing to try to get it as close to that as possible to ensure that we're getting the best tone, and that best tone will lead to getting it faster as well. If we don't have it perfect, we're not going to be able to practice towards that perfection that we're wanting to. Again, as close to perfect as we can get. And so that's my first point here is practice does not equal perfect. Perfect practice makes for perfect. So you want to strive for that as much as you can. Now to go with that, I just said that this will allow you to gain more speed, right? Well, what happens with a lot of people is they start practicing and they get one part really comfortable, another part less comfortable, and then they practice it all evenly with their time. In fact, some people, when they're practicing, they'll practice the thing that's more comfortable even more because it's more fun to play, and the part that's less comfortable gets left by the wayside. This can be for anything you're working on in the ukulele, but with finger picking especially, it's very easy for your weak spots to become weaker and your strong parts to become stronger. So what we want to do is we want to adopt a new mindset, and that mindset is going to be that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Say that 10 times. See if you tongue twister. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. What this means is when we're finger picking specifically here, if we want to play something slowly, We want to hear it sound not choppy. We want it to be very smooth sounding, right? Because if I'm plucking something, bring the camera down like this. Oh, this sounds so bad. Oh, it's just dreadful, right? If I'm playing something like that slowly and it's not smooth, it sounds terrible. So what I'm looking for is smooth. I'm going as slow as I need to make sure that I'm playing it as smooth as I can. And the reason for this is both because it's helping me work on that technique to be as perfect as possible, but more importantly, it's helping me make sure that my weak points can become stronger. You're only as strong as your weakest link, right? And if your weakest link is something that you're plucking within the finger picking, if you try to go faster, that link's going to break and the whole thing's going to fall apart. So you need to strengthen those parts that are difficult by slowing it down so that those difficult parts can be played smoothly. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. See how it sounds the same no matter what speed I play it at? If I hit a note a little hard like I did there, you'll hear it really twangs out because it wasn't as smooth. And if you're finding that happens within your practice, where when you're playing something, it just starts falling apart a little bit, it's not smooth anymore. And the most important thing you can do is slow it back down. So it's kind of funny because we think, how do we play finger picking faster? How do we get more proficient at this technique and speeding it up? Well, you speed it up, right? No, you actually go slower because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you're able to play it very smoothly, slowly, and you can scale that smoothness up and make sure that you're playing it with the same precision, you're going to be able to get much, much further with whatever it is you're working on. And I cannot stress this enough. For a majority of techniques that I've struggled with in my life, especially finger picking, I'll show you a little example here in a second. The reason I would struggle with it is because I tried to speed it up, built on a lack of ability of technique and smoothness of that technique, or maybe one part was a little harder and the other parts were easy, and I just kind of went for it. And I never got where I wanted to because I didn't have it smooth. There are two different instances of this for me. The first one's a technique that's called the 3-finger tremolo. I'll show it to you real quick. I'm going to move my camera down. So this first technique, what I'm going to do is my thumb's going to be responsible of my G, C, and E strings. And my index and middle finger are both going to kick on the A string. Right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pluck like my G first, and then my my A string twice with my middle and then index fingers. So it's thumb, index, or thumb, middle, index, both on the A string. Thumb on the G, A with my middle, index. And then my thumb's going to go the next string, the C string, and I'm going to do the same thing, middle and index. Then my E with my thumb, and then index. So it's the thumb going between each one of these, with the index striking twice in between. So at speed, I'm going to zoom in super close so you can see it. It's going to look something like this. And you can kind of count it in threes. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's a great technique when you have like a melody on your A string. Beautiful technique. Love using this. The problem that I had is these two fingers got really soft and quiet because I was trying to speed them up without getting good clarity, without getting them nice and smooth. But my thumb would boom. And so I'd end up playing the technique like this, where it just sounds like a jungled mess. It's just awful. You hear this really strongly, and you don't hear this at all because I was speeding up something that wasn't comfortable yet. The technique wasn't quite right, so I wasn't practicing it perfectly. And then it also wasn't smooth at all. So I was just speeding up something that was already rough. What helped me get better with this was getting it very smooth at a slow speed with proper technique. And then very gradually increase the speed. Really, really important when you're working on a technique like this to get that comfortable. I'm going to move the camera back because if you can't play it proficiently at a slow speed, you're not going to be able to play it proficiently at a fast speed, right? And with this type of thing, when I was learning it, I was playing all these complicated melodies up and down the fretboard while also trying to learn the technique. And this is the third point I want to make today, which is less is more. When you're learning how to fingerpick something that's very difficult, don't worry about doing all of the different left-hand parts right away. Just get comfortable with the technique. In the case of this three-finger tremolo, trying to play the melody to like Ave Maria as I'm going through this was not doing me any favors. It was just kind of like doing this on a pogo stick or something. It was too many skills to try to be building all at once to make any actual headway at any one thing. Human beings are not very good at multitasking. We're just not. And we work so much better when we have a singular task to accomplish. So when you're working on finger picking, focus in on that one task. In the case of me with the three-finger roll, I would just hold the C chord. I knew I wanted this note to ring through, this 3 on the A, and I would just listen for that and work on that. And as I got comfortable with this technique and could do it more proficiently and faster, then I started working on the song and chords that would go underneath it. And that made it so much easier for me to tackle, right? Really important, I think, to actually less is more. Have that mindset as you're working on things because it can make it so much easier when you're practicing. So we've had 3 points so far, right? The first point is practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. We want to make sure we're doing the techniques exactly right. Second point was slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Play it at a speed where the weakest parts of whatever you're playing can be played smoothly and speed it all up from there. The third thing is less is more. We don't want to practice so many things at once. It's okay to just hold one chord and practice the pattern. Don't worry about the whole song. Try to focus on one hand at a time as you're working on it. The fourth part, though, I think is it's not the most important. They're all important, but it's the one that people, I think, forget to do the most. And what that is create accountability for yourself. And the best way to create accountability for yourself is either like find a private teacher for lessons, or if you don't have that as an option, which is totally fine, record yourself. Like put on a video or a recording and record your practice. First of all, that might be very stressful. I know it's stressful for me. Every time I go on camera, it's like a panic attack, right? But it's really beneficial because what can happen with it is if you record yourself, A, you get comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, which will help you become a better player. But B, the more important part here is you'll have a way to watch what you're doing to try to give yourself feedback for whatever it is you're struggling with. You can see your struggles in addition to hear and feel them in a way that you can't when you're just feeling them playing. It's just you don't get that sort of feedback unless you take a video. And watching that video back can have you clue in of, oh, I thought my fingers were pretty perpendicular, but I might need to turn them a little bit more. Or it might be, wow, I'm going way up the fretboard. I should be the position more over the sound hole. Whatever it might be, you can find a lot of different answers from just videoing yourself and watching it back. My favorite part about making videos, though, with that and recording your practice videos is save them or save a couple and then go back and watch them like months later. It's one of the best feelings because progress is slow. And sometimes it feels like we're not making any at all. Kind of like a slug on a sidewalk. You look at the slug and you're just like, it's not going anywhere, right? That's how it feels to practice. It feels like we're slugs. And sure enough, that slug on the sidewalk, if I go, up to my house, do some chores or whatever, leave the house an hour and a half later and go look for the slug, it's like, where'd he go? Whoa, he's way up there. That slug might have traveled, I don't know, 50, 100 feet. How far do slugs travel in a couple hours? Point is, when you watch the slug, it seems like it's not moving, but you let the slug continue moving, and over time, it will move quite long distances because those incremental steps amount to something much larger. Your practice is the same way. I don't mean to be comparing your practice to a slug, but it is for all of us. And in the moment, it feels like it's not moving. But when you can look back a month before and you've been practicing every day for a few minutes, you're going to feel like, wow, that slug went way up the hill. I went way further with this technique than I thought I would. And that accountability system of recording yourself can give you the confidence to continue doing it. So that's what's cool about it. Accountability is both to give yourself feedback so that you can know, what it is you should be working on because you can see what you're doing. But it also gives you this nice confidence boost over time because you get to see this library of videos and you get to make progress as you go through it. So those are my 4 big recommendations for how to fingerpick faster. The first thing there is perfect practice makes perfect. Not practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And moving my camera way down here fast. Woo! We talked about the technique, making sure that the thumb is a little bit more of a 45-degree angle, right about where the sound hole and the fretboard meet here, wherever string it's going to sit on. Index, middle, and ring fingers, no matter which number of them you're using, you want to put behind the thumb and keep them at about a perpendicular angle to the strings. As you're striking the strings, you want to have some give in these knuckle joints so that the thumb kind of comes back this way and the index, middle, and ring all kind of have that same bend back just a bit. And then you're going to come up and out and let the pressure of the string help guide the finger to give that golden magical tone. The second point that we made, moving the camera back up here, is only play as fast as your slowest parts. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Whatever speed you have to work on something to play it perfectly smoothly is the speed that you should be working on it and gradually increasing it from there. You can even put on a metronome. Maybe you can play it perfectly at 72 beats per minute. Then go up to 73 beats per minute, then 74, 75. This can really help when you're practicing to give context of where you're at. The third thing there is less is more. Don't worry about doing all the complicated left hand and right hand things at the same time. It's not going to help you. Just work on the finger picking technique and hold maybe one chord with the left hand. It's okay to break it off into pieces to make it easier for us to work on. And the fourth point there is create accountability. Video yourself, find a teacher, play it for a friend, something that can allow you to hear a different perspective than you get when you're just playing by yourself. Watching a video back can be a great method to see things that you might be doing better than you thought you were and worse than you thought you were. And I love videos because you can make this little library and realize how far you've come. And it's really fun looking at videos that are 3 months old when you've been practicing every day, because you might not feel like you make much progress in those moments. But man, do you ever over the course of 3 months. So those are my recommendations for how to fingerpick faster. Most of these concepts work for how to do anything faster on the ukulele. The concepts like slow is smooth, smooth is fast, perfect practice makes perfect. These are concepts that really apply anywhere. So hopefully it can help you with your practice. Now, if you're watching this live, feel free to leave any comments in the chat. I'm going to answer any questions there are. If you're watching this as a recording, I also answer questions that are listed on the Rock Class 101 forums. And so I'm going to read those as well as we go through. So if you can't make this live, you can check it out there. We do this every second Tuesday of the month at noon Pacific time. I realize it is currently the third Tuesday of the month, but that's because summer was crazy. We'll be back at it in September at the second Tuesday of the month. And so I believe is that the 12th? I think it's the 12th. But let's go ahead and see if there are any questions here in the chat and then also on the forums. So let me check here. Open this up. Click, click, click. All right. It looks like there's a question here on the forum of Rock Class 101. So the Bumble Bard, who is an all-star player at these sessions, says, I actually have a legit question for once. With alternate finger picking, normally you use your index and middle finger for that. But is there anything wrong with using the thumb and index for that instead? I have this maybe bad habit of always bracing my pinky on the ukulele when I play, especially if I'm playing something fast. Also, after last month's lesson, I switched to feeding my ukulele New England clam chowder instead of tomato soup, and it likes it way more. Thanks for the tip. For that second part of the thing, you'll have to check out last month's live lesson. But for the first part of alternate picking, fantastic question. So there's actually a lot of different ways to do alternate picking. I'm going to bring the camera down. What Bumblebard's asking is, using these two fingers to kind of go back and forth. I'm actually going to super zoom in here. This is alternate picking, and you can see I've got my pinky anchored here. To talk about pinky anchors for just a minute, anchoring with your pinky is okay as long as it doesn't impede your proper technique. So remember I talked about the thumb and fingers there? When I'm doing 4-finger picking, if I bring my pinky onto the ukulele, it warps the position of all the fingers, so I don't use a pinky brace on 4-finger picking because it changes the angles. But if I'm doing 3-finger, it doesn't change anything. And if I'm doing something like alternate picking, it doesn't change anything either. So pinky brace is okay as long as you still have a good angle with your fingers. With the alternate picking, though, the index and middle going back and forth, very common way to play. It's a really nice technique, works wonderfully. Instead, using the index and pinky, or index and pointer, excuse me, works great as well. However, when I do alternate picking, I don't use my thumb and index because of their proximity. I find that they kind of run into each other a little bit because the thumb kind of goes in front like this, the index kind of comes behind. So they're kind of always running into each other, and that can sometimes like encourage some bad habits and technique. So what I like to do is use my thumb and my middle finger. I like to actually have them offset like this. And if you saw our last live lesson, I talked about learning a Jake Shimabukuro song called Third Stream, which I will have linked down below. And I use the thumb and middle finger there for that so that they can kind of stay away from each other and not run into each other. So the index and middle, totally fine. The index and thumb, okay. But I prefer the thumb and middle so that the fingers aren't getting in each other's way. So, but lots of different ways to do it and a lot of right ways too. Zoom back out here. So let's see, any other questions at all that people have? Again, if you're watching this live, feel free to leave a comment in the chat. And I'm going to check here to see if there's any other comments on these forums and stuff. Finger picking is a tough technique, and it takes a long time to get comfortable and proficient with. I still remember when I was learning to finger pick, I would do it over here all the time, and I just wouldn't get this good tone. I never could figure out why. Moving it down here made such a huge difference for me. But it did slow everything down because I had it smoothly here. And the point I'm trying to make is you strive for the best you can do. And when you learn new stuff, try to implement it and be patient with yourself because this is really hard stuff. So let me see if there's any comment here. I don't see any comment there. I don't see any questions in the chat either, which is totally fine. Summer is here for sure. Don't see anything there. Well, if you have a question, you're watching this live, feel free to leave it in the chat. Just to kind of recap, when it comes to working on finger picking and increasing your speed, the best thing you can do really is make sure you're learning the technique correctly, that you have really good form, that you can play it very smoothly and slowly, because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You can't play something fast if you can't play it slow. It's just not going to work. Being able to play something very slowly and smoothly will allow you to incrementally increase the speed. I like putting a metronome on at the slow speed and then just one click at a time. It might not feel like much in each day to day, but man, over the course of a couple months, you can make some serious improvement to the speed. The next thing there was that less is more. You don't have to worry about the whole song and the picking pattern when it's all difficult and all complicated. Just bite off small pieces. Find one part of the picking pattern. Maybe just work on one chord with it. We're terrible at multitasking. So what we want to do is learn new information one piece at a time. Once that new information is not new anymore, we can introduce something else that's new. And the last thing there is create accountability, whether playing for someone else or a teacher, or my favorite, videoing yourself, watching that video back so that you can see what you're doing. You can get a better idea of what you're struggling with visually. And the best part is creates a little library so that you can feel that progress in a different way. When you watch a video from you playing 3 months ago, when you've been practicing every day, it's a good confidence builder. But there you have it. There are my recommendations for how to finger pick faster. If you're watching this as a recording, feel free to leave your comments down below and we'll try to get to them. Again, we do one of these every second Tuesday of the month at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see you at one of them live. I hope you all have a wonderful, safe summer, rest of the summer, and I will see you in September. Thank you so much. Take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.